HOA Karen crashes my tractor during corn harvest and gets arrested by the police. It was a normal day. Just me, my tractor, and the endless rows of corn. But then, she appeared. Karen, the HOA president, marching straight towards me. I thought she was just going to yell. I didn't expect her to do this. And I definitely didn't expect what happened next, when the cops showed up. Stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you in shock. Hey everyone, welcome back to HOA Secrets Uncovered. I'm Mark, and today we have one of the wildest HOA stories you've ever heard. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, where everyone knows the rules, or so I thought. I'm just your average guy, trying to get through my harvest. Until one Karen in a power trip turned everything upside down. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the story of how one HOA president's mistake led to a police tow. It was a crisp morning, the kind where the sunlight dances off the dewy grass, and everything feels calm, peaceful, just how I liked it. The cornfield stretched out before me, rows upon rows of golden crops waiting for harvest. I had my hands on the tractor's wheel, feeling the rumble beneath me as I made my way through the field. The harvest season had begun, and for me, it was always a time of hard work and quiet satisfaction. But, as I turned the tractor around for another pass, I noticed something strange. At the far end of the street, near the end of my driveway, I saw a figure, standing tall, staring at me. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I realized who it was. Karen. You know the type, always following the HOA rules to the letter, walking around like she owned the entire neighborhood. She wasn't just a regular neighbor. No, she was the HOA president, the one who made sure everyone followed every rule, no matter. How ridiculous. And believe me, those rules were ridiculous. I kept my focus on the tractor, pretending I didn't notice her, but she wasn't going to let that happen. I watched as she started walking toward me, her heels clicking against the pavement like an ominous ticking clock. She looked angry, like she was on a mission, and I knew deep down that I was about to be in the middle of one of her inspections. Great. I hadn't done anything wrong, or so I thought. My property was as clean and neat as it could be. But Karen, she didn't see things that way. I slowed the tractor down, unsure of what to expect. The last thing I wanted was for her to start pointing out some small detail I had missed. Maybe my mailbox was an inch too high, or my lawn wasn't green enough. It was always something with her. But today, I had a feeling she was after something more. She finally reached me, standing in front of the tractor, blocking my path. "Well," she said, crossing her arms over her chest, "don't you think it's a bit dangerous driving this thing around like that?" I stared at her, trying to keep calm. "Dangerous?" I replied, keeping my tone even. "It's just a tractor, Karen. It's what I use to harvest the crops. Been doing it for years." She didn't even flinch. "The HOA doesn't allow machinery on the streets unless it's for approved purposes, and that means you need permission." I could feel my patience wearing thin. "I don't need permission to harvest my own field," I said, trying not to lose my temper. She didn't let it go. "Well, you're breaking the rules, and you'll hear about it. I'm reporting this." A small laugh bubbled up in my chest. "Report what? Me working my field? You've got to be kidding me." But Karen didn't back down. Instead, she gave me a look that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I had seen that look before. It was the me look she gave when she was about to make my life miserable for no reason at all. Then, something strange happened. As she stood there, glaring at me, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A flash of movement, A car. And not just any car. It was her SUV parked by the curb. But it wasn't parked like it should have been. No. It was way too close to the road, sticking out into the street, in a spot that was clearly against the rules. I couldn't help it. I had to say something. "You're blocking the road, Karen," I pointed out, trying to keep the peace. "That's a violation of the HOA parking rules." She froze for a moment, her face turning from angry to confused. And then, to my surprise, she snapped back. "Don't you dare talk to me about the rules. I'm the one who enforces them." I shrugged, pushing the thought aside. "All right. Well, I've got work to do. You can report whatever you want, but I'm not stopping." Her eyes narrowed as she took a step back. "You're making a mistake, but you'll regret it. I promise you." And with that, she turned and started to walk back toward her car. But I wasn't done yet. As I revved up the tractor to finish the row, I noticed her glance over her shoulder, glaring at me. I tried not to pay attention, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time I'd see her today. The tension in the air was thick, like something was about to snap. I could feel it. And it wasn't just about the stupid tractor or the stupid rules anymore. It was personal. I tried to ignore the feeling. I tried to focus on the field. But as I drove on, I could feel her watching me, her presence lurking in the background. It didn't take long for Karen to do exactly what I knew she would, report me to the HOA. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail, one of those official-looking envelopes that made your stomach drop the moment you saw it. I tore it open, the words jumping out at me. "Violation of HOA rules, unauthorized use of machinery in residential area." I couldn't believe it. Was she really going to do this? She knew how much work I had ahead of me. I was trying to harvest my crops, but of course it didn't matter. Rules were rules, or at least that's what she always liked to say. I stood there, holding the letter in my hands, my mind racing. I had expected trouble from Karen, but this felt different. It was more than just petty fines or complaints. She was going after me, trying to ruin my entire harvest. I couldn't just ignore it. I had worked too hard for this crop. The entire neighborhood knew how important this season was to me. But Karen had no boundaries, and I had a feeling she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer. After a few rings, the calm voice of my lawyer, Sarah, answered. "Hello?" "Sarah, it's me. I've got a situation. Karen from the HOA is at it again. She's reported me for using the tractor on my own property." There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "I'll be honest, this is a tough one. She's got the power in this neighborhood, and you're going up against her HOA rules. But we'll fight it. You can't just give in." "Yeah, I know," I muttered. "But it's more than that, Sarah. I think she's doing this on purpose. She's been targeting me for months. I think she's out to make me pay for something." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I'll look into it. But you need to be careful. This could escalate. Keep your head low for now and try not to give her any more ammunition." I hung up, feeling more anxious than before. Karen wasn't just trying to enforce the rules anymore. She was trying to break me. Over the next few days, I did what Sarah suggested, kept my head down, kept working. I wasn't about to let Karen win, but every day it felt like the tension was rising. I'd catch glimpses of Karen standing at her window, staring out at me like a hawk watching its prey. It wasn't long before things started getting worse. Karen was relentless. Every time I stepped foot outside, she seemed to be there, lurking in the background. I could almost feel her eyes on me. One afternoon, while I was taking a break, I looked up to see her walking down the street, clipboard in hand. The sight of that clipboard made my blood run cold. She approached me, and I could feel my heart start to race. She was too calm. I knew something big was coming. "Doing well today?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I gritted my teeth and nodded. "Yeah, just finishing up. Thanks for asking." She smiled, but I could tell it wasn't genuine. She didn't care how my harvest was going. This was all about control. "I noticed a few things on your property," she said, her eyes narrowing. "First, your mailbox is still too high, and I see you haven't painted it in the right shade of blue. That's a violation of the HOA guidelines." I stared at her, feeling my anger rise. "Karen, it's just a mailbox, and the paint is fine. What do you really want from me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper, a fine notice. She handed it to me, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Another fine," she said coolly. "This time for the mailbox. And if you don't fix it by the end of the week, I'll have no choice but to report you to the HOA board again." I stood there, holding the paper, my fists clenched at my sides. It wasn't just about the mailbox. It was about everything. She wanted to wear me down, to make me suffer for her own amusement. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I had a plan. The next day, I went out and bought the paint, the exact shade of blue she insisted on. I wasn't about to let her win. But while I was there, something strange happened. I was standing in the paint aisle when I overheard two neighbors talking. They were whispering, but I could hear them clearly. "Did you hear what Karen did to Joe? She reported him to the HOA for the smallest thing, and now he's facing thousands in fines." The other neighbor gasped. "Seriously? For what?" "His grass was half an inch too high, and now he's getting fined for it." I froze. That was exactly the kind of thing Karen would do. She didn't care about rules. She cared about power. I couldn't let this happen to me. I had to fight back. But how? As I stood there thinking, a thought crossed my mind. What if I could use the rules against her? What if I could follow every single rule to the letter and force her to play by the same game she was trying to trap me in? It was a risky plan, but it just might work. The next few days felt like a game of cat and mouse. Karen was everywhere, lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to slip up. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I followed every rule to the letter, not just the mailbox one, but everything. My lawn was mowed exactly to the inch. My driveway was spotless. I even made sure the trash cans were tucked away at the right time. But Karen, she wasn't satisfied. I should have known better. It wasn't about the rules anymore. It was about control. She was going to find something, anything, to use against me. I could feel it, like a storm brewing just on the horizon. Then, one afternoon, it happened. I was out in the field, the tractor humming beneath me as I finished up another row. The sun was starting to set, casting a golden light over everything. It was peaceful. Just me, the corn, and the sound of the engine. I should have known better than to let my guard down. I heard the crunch of gravel under tires and looked up. There she was, Karen, pulling up in her SUV. And this time, she wasn't alone. She had someone with her. A man in a suit, clipboard in hand. I had no idea who he was, but the look on Karen's face said everything. This wasn't just another casual inspection like before. This was serious. I slowed the tractor to a halt, watching as they both climbed out of the car. Karen's smile was too wide. It didn't reach her eyes. The man beside her didn't say anything, just stood there, silently watching me like he was waiting for something. "What's going on?" I called out, trying to sound casual. but I could feel the tension in my chest tightening. Karen smiled again, but this time it was colder. "I hope you're ready for this," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "This is Mr. Harris. He's from the HOA's legal department, and he's here to help us with a little issue." I felt my stomach drop. Legal department? For what? Karen's smile didn't falter. "We're here to inspect your property for further violations. You see, there's more than just the mailbox issue. You're in violation of several rules, and we're going to fix that today." My heart pounded in my chest. I had been following every rule, every single one. What was she talking about? The man, Mr. Harris, stepped forward, flipping through his clipboard like he was reading off a checklist. "We've noticed several things that need attention," he said, his voice robotic, distant. "Your lawn, not uniform enough. Your driveway, there's a small crack near the edge. And don't get me started on your fence, it's not the right color." I stared at him, then at Karen. "Are you serious?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're coming here to fine me over cracks in the driveway and the color of my fence?" "Rules are rules," Karen said, her voice almost sing-song, like she was enjoying this far too much. "And they must be followed to the letter." I felt my blood boil. "I've been following every rule you've thrown at me," I said, my voice starting to rise. "You've got no reason to do this. I'm just trying to work my farm." But Karen wasn't backing down. She pointed toward the horizon where the corn was nearly ready to harvest. "This is a residential area. You're not supposed to be using this kind of machinery on your property. You've been violating the rules from the very start." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're kidding, right? I've been using this tractor for years. This is my property, my livelihood. And you're going to tell me I can't harvest my crops?" The words came out in a rush, but Karen didn't care. "This is exactly what I mean," she said, ignoring my frustration. "The tractor, the cracks, the fence. This is just the beginning. I'm going to make sure the HOA holds you accountable." Mr. Harris didn't speak, but his expression told me everything I needed to know. He was there to back her up, to make sure I didn't get away with anything. This wasn't just about fines anymore. This was a full-on attack. I stood there for a moment, my fists clenched at my sides. I had to make a choice. I could back down, give in to her petty demands, or I could fight back. And I wasn't about to back down. Without thinking, I grabbed the papers from the tractor's dashboard. The official HOA documents, the ones I had kept for months. I had every single rule and regulation printed out, and I was about to use them. "This is ridiculous," I said, flipping through the pages. "I know the rules better than you. You're targeting me for no reason. I'm not going to let you destroy my livelihood over nonsense." Karen's smile faded, but she wasn't done. "You'll see," she said coldly. "We have all the power here. You'll play by our rules, or you'll face the consequences." And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just fighting for a fine or some petty rule. I was fighting for my land, my future. I couldn't let her win. Not now. It was only a matter of time before Karen escalated things. But even I didn't expect it to happen this fast. After our confrontation with the HOA legal guy, I thought she'd back off for a while, maybe lick her wounds and plan her next move. But no, Karen wasn't the type to give up that easily. A day after our little chat in the field, I received another letter in the mail. Only this time, it wasn't from the HOA. It was from her. And this one was different. It was a legal threat. "Cease and desist," the letter read in bold red letters. "You are hereby ordered to halt all farming activities immediately on your property until further notice. Failure to comply will result in legal action." I couldn't believe it. I was being ordered to stop farming, stop working my own land. I stood there, holding the letter, my hands trembling with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Karen had really crossed the line now. This wasn't just about a stupid mailbox or the color of my fence anymore. She was attacking my livelihood, my business, my life. I immediately picked up the phone and called my lawyer, Sarah. "Sarah, it's me again," I said, barely able to control the fury in my voice. "This time it's serious. Karen just sent me a cease and desist letter. She's trying to stop me from farming." Sarah didn't hesitate. "This is a serious move. She's trying to scare you, but don't come with letter. Let me look at the letter. I'll send a response, but you need to stay calm." I could hear the stress in her voice, and that only made my blood boil even more. Karen had gone too far. She wasn't going to win this. I wouldn't let her. Over the next few days, I kept working, ignoring Karen's attempts to stop me. The tractors kept running. The fields kept getting harvested. But as I drove the tractor through the rows of corn, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then it happened. I was in the middle of the field, the sun starting to set, when I heard the unmistakable sound of a car engine. And there she was, Karen, driving down the gravel road again. But this time, she didn't have a clipboard. She didn't even have a smile. No. Today was different. Today, she had something far worse in mind. I stopped the tractor and watched as she parked in front of my property, getting out of the car with a determined look on her face. This wasn't a casual visit. Something big was coming. I could feel it in my gut. She marched up to me, her heels digging into the dirt with every step. She wasn't just angry now. She was seething. "You think you can ignore my orders? You think you can keep breaking the rules like this?" She spat, her voice dripping with venom. I stayed quiet, refusing to let her get to me. But deep down, I was boiling. She was about to push me too far. "I'm done being nice," Karen continued, her voice lowering to a cold whisper. "You think you can defy me and get away with it? You've made a huge mistake. You're going to regret this." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Karen, I've done nothing wrong. You're the one who's been breaking the rules, making up violations, and now you're trying to destroy me. I'm not going to back down." Karen didn't flinch. She just smiled, a wicked, chilling smile. "You're not the only one with power here," she said, her voice turning icy. "I've already called the cops. They're on their way. And once they get here, you'll see just how far I'm willing to go to make sure you follow the rules." My heart stopped. The cops? She really was going to bring the law into this. "You can't do that," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "This is my property. You can't just call the police because you don't like what I'm doing." But Karen wasn't listening. She was already walking back to her SUV, her phone pressed to her ear. I could see the satisfaction in her eyes, the feeling of power as she watched me stand there, helpless. I wasn't about to let this happen. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah, my lawyer. "Karen's called the cops on me. She says I'm violating the rules. I need help, Sarah. Now." "Stay calm," Sarah replied. "We'll handle it. I'll get in touch with the authorities. Just don't do anything reckless." But it was too late for calm. Karen had gone too far, and I wasn't about to let her win. The cops were on their way, and I had no idea how this was going to end. As I waited, I could feel the tension in the air, like a storm just about to break. The cops would arrive any minute, and I had no idea what kind of trouble Karen had gotten me into. I glanced over at her, standing by her car, watching me with that same smug look on her face. She thought she had won. She thought she had control. But she didn't know me, and she didn't know what I was capable of. When the police showed up, I wasn't going to back down. I could feel my pulse quicken as I saw the flashing lights in the distance. The sirens grew louder with each passing second, and Karen, she stood there with that cold, satisfied look on her face, watching me like a predator stalking its prey. The cops were coming. I was standing in the middle of my own field, my tractor still idling behind me, and Karen was just watching, arms crossed like she had already won. But she didn't know me. She didn't know how far I was willing to go to protect my land, my livelihood. As the cop car rolled up to the edge of my property, I felt a surge of anger. How had things gotten this far? This wasn't just about petty HOA rules anymore. Karen had crossed the line from nuisance to full-blown attack. She was trying to take everything I'd worked for. The officer stepped out of his car, a tall man in a dark uniform, looking professional, but serious. He glanced at Karen, then at me. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice even, trying to gauge the situation. Before I could respond, Karen jumped in. "This man," she said, pointing her finger at me, "has been violating HOA rules for weeks. He's been using that tractor on his property without permission, and it's causing a public nuisance. I've tried to be reasonable, but now I have no choice but to call the authorities." I could see the officer's eyebrows raise slightly. He was listening, but he didn't seem convinced. "Good. This isn't the first time I've had to deal with him," Karen continued, her voice growing more dramatic. "He refuses to follow the rules, and now it's affecting the entire neighborhood. If this continues, we could be facing serious consequences. It's up to you now, officer." I could feel my blood boiling, but I wasn't about to lose control. I stepped forward, making sure the officer could hear me. "With all due respect, officer, I'm not breaking any laws. I've been using this tractor to harvest my crops on my own property. This is my land. This is my livelihood. The only thing I've violated is Karen's idea of what's appropriate." The officer looked between us, taking in both sides. Karen had that smug look, like she already knew how this was going to play out, but the officer wasn't buying it. He looked down at his notepad and scribbled something. "I'll need to check into the situation, but based on what I'm seeing, there's no immediate violation here. You're within your rights to use machinery on your own property, as long as it doesn't endanger others." I could feel a wave of relief wash over me, but Karen wasn't ready to back down. She stepped in front of the officer. "But, officer, you don't understand. He's been breaking the rules left and right. The HOA has already issued fines, and now he's flaunting it in front of us all. We need to stop this before it escalates." The officer looked at her, clearly done with her drama. "Ma'am, unless there's an actual safety issue, I can't take action. You can file a complaint with the HOA or take it to court, but that's not something I can handle here." Karen's face twisted into something almost unrecognizable. Her plan was falling apart, and I could see the frustration building inside her. She turned to me, her voice barely a whisper, but I heard every word. "This isn't over," she spat. "You may have won today, but you're going to regret this. I'm not finished with you." The officer gave her one last look, his patience clearly running out. "All right, I think that's enough for today. If you want to pursue this further, you'll need to go through the proper channels, but I'm leaving. This is not my issue anymore." With that, the officer turned and walked back to his car, leaving Karen standing there, furious, but defeated. As I watched the police car drive away, I realized something. This wasn't just about the tractor or the fines. It wasn't even about the ridiculous rules that the HOA had made up. It was about power. Karen had tried to control me and to destroy everything I'd worked for. And for a moment, it looked like she might succeed. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not like this. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. The cops had left, and Karen was standing there, powerless. But I knew she wasn't done, not by a long shot. She stormed off, her heels pounding the gravel, and I stood there watching her go. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd just entered a much bigger battle, one that was only going to get uglier. The war between me and Karen had only just begun. The day after the cops left, I thought I'd finally be able to catch my breath. Karen had backed off, for now. But I knew deep down, she wasn't the type to just let things go. No, she was plotting something. I could feel it in the air. For the next few days, I kept my routine. The tractor hummed through the fields, the sun warmed my back, and I did everything I could to keep my mind off Karen's latest threats. I thought I had won, that I'd gotten the upper hand. But Karen was always lurking in the background, waiting for her next move. It wasn't until Thursday afternoon that I got the first sign that the storm was far from over. I was sitting on the porch, enjoying a quiet lunch, when I saw a car pull into my driveway. It was a black sedan, and something about it made my stomach drop. The car wasn't familiar, but the way it rolled up the driveway, slow and deliberate, I knew something was wrong. I stood up, heart pounding in my chest, as the car stopped. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a briefcase. He looked around, taking in the surroundings like he was on a mission. Before I could even ask what was going on, he approached me. "Mr. Zia?" he asked, his voice smooth and calm. I nodded, my eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" "My name is Mr. Donnelly," he said, flashing me a business card. "I'm an attorney representing the HOA. We've received complaints about your activities, and I'm here to serve you with legal papers." I felt the blood drain from my face. Legal papers? This wasn't just another petty complaint. Karen had escalated things. Again. Donnelly handed me the papers, and I glanced at the top. "Cease and desist," it read, just like the last letter. But this time, it was worse. It was a formal demand to stop all farming activities on my property immediately, or face severe consequences. I looked up at Donnelly, trying to keep my cool. "What's going on here? What are these papers?" "The HOA is taking legal action against you for repeated violations of the rules," Donnelly said, his tone still calm but firm. "You have 10 days to cease all farming operations, or we will take this to court." My mind raced. Court? This was beyond anything I had imagined. I couldn't believe this was happening. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is my property. I've been following every rule. What's this really about?" Donnelly didn't respond right away. Instead, he handed me a stack of documents, the kind that lawyers use to drown you in paperwork. "You'll have to file a response to these within 10 days. If you don't, the HOA will move forward with a lawsuit." I stood there, holding the papers in my hand, completely stunned. This wasn't just about fines or complaints anymore. Karen was trying to take everything away from me. She was using the full power of the HOA to break me. And now it was real. As Donnelly turned and walked back to his car, I felt a wave of panic wash over me. What was I supposed to do? I had no idea how to fight something like this. Karen had outplayed me, and now it felt like she had me cornered. Yet, I spent the next few hours pacing around my property, my mind racing. There had to be a way out of this. I wasn't going to let her take my farm, my livelihood. But as the hours passed, something strange happened. I started thinking back to everything Karen had said, everything she'd done. There was a pattern, something I hadn't noticed before. She was desperate, desperate to control me, desperate to win. She didn't just want me to follow the rules, she wanted me to submit. She wanted me to bend to her will. And that's when I realized something big. Karen wasn't as untouchable as she thought she was. In fact, she had made a huge mistake. I remembered something from the HOA bylaws, something that hadn't clicked before. Karen had been making so many demands, throwing so many rules at me. But had she ever followed them herself? I grabbed the stack of documents Donnelly had left me, my hands shaking. There it was, buried in the fine print. A clause, a loophole that I could use against Karen. It was risky, but if I played it right, I could turn this whole situation around. I wasn't going to just roll over and let her win. I was going to take the fight straight to her. But the question was I ready to risk everything to bring Karen down? I couldn't believe what I was holding in my hands, proof that Karen had made a mistake. A huge one. It was a clause in the HOA bylaws, buried deep in the fine print. It stated that the HOA board was required to give formal written notice of any violation before taking legal action. Not only had Karen failed to do that, but she had also ignored the fact that her own rules were being violated by other residents, including herself. The sense of power surged through me. It was like the scales had tipped. For once, I wasn't the one backed into a corner. She was. I knew I had to act fast. If I was going to turn this around, I couldn't wait for her to make the next move. I needed to hit her where it hurt, legally. If she thought she could bully me into submission, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. That night, I called my lawyer, Sarah. "I've got it," I said, my voice full of determination. "I've found a loophole in the bylaws. Karen's been making demands and threatening me without following proper procedure." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm sending you the papers now," I replied. "I've got proof that Karen has violated the rules. The HOA is required to give formal notice before taking legal action, and she didn't. I can use this." Sarah took a moment to review the documents I sent her. "This could change everything," she said, a new sense of hope in her voice. "If we play this right, we can turn the tables completely. You'll have the leverage you need." I hung up with a plan forming in my mind. It was time to take the fight to the HOA board, to Karen herself. I wasn't going to let her ruin my life any longer. It was time for me to take control. The next day, I gathered all the documents, my proof, my notes, and everything Sarah and I had discussed, and headed straight to the HOA office. The building was nothing fancy, just a small, nondescript office on the edge of town. But I knew that behind those walls, decisions were being made that could destroy everything I'd worked for. When I walked in, the receptionist barely looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" she asked, not even bothering to give me a second glance. "I'm here to speak with the board," I said, my voice firm. She raised an eyebrow, but after a few moments, she stood up and led me to a small conference room in the back. As I sat down, my heart was racing. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. The door opened, and in walked Karen. Her eyes locked onto mine, and she didn't even try to hide the smug smile on her face. She had that look again, like she knew something I didn't, like she was about to win. But this time, I was ready. "Mr. Zia," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I see you've come to plead your case. What can I help you with?" I stood up, holding the stack of documents in my hands. "You can start by explaining why you didn't follow the proper procedures when issuing me these fines," I said, dropping the stack onto the table in front of her. "I've got proof right here that you broke the rules." Karen's smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly recovered. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice suddenly much colder. I didn't let her control the conversation this time. "According to the bylaws," I said, pointing to the papers in front of her, "you are required to give me formal notice before taking any legal action. Not only did you fail to do that, but you've also been selectively enforcing the rules. Your own property is violating HOA regulations. What do you have to say about that?" I could see the panic starting to rise in her eyes. For the first time since this all started, she didn't have the upper hand. She wasn't the one holding the power anymore. I was. Karen opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked over at the other board members who were watching the exchange with growing discomfort. They knew she was on shaky ground, but they were hesitant to speak up. I didn't give her a chance to recover. You've been abusing your position, Karen, and now you're going to pay for it. There was a long, tense silence. The board members exchanged glances, but none of them said a word. It was clear that Karen was losing her grip. Finally, one of the board members, an older man with graying hair, cleared his throat. Mr. Zia, we didn't realize the extent of the issues here, he said, his voice reluctant. We'll need to look into this further, but if what you're saying is true, it could be a serious problem for the HOA. Karen's face turned red with fury. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words caught in her throat. I could see the defeat in her eyes, and it was sweet. Consider this your formal notice, I said, my voice steady. I'm filing a formal complaint against you and the HOA for selective enforcement of the rules and failure to follow due process. If this isn't resolved, I'll take legal action. As I turned and walked out of the room, I knew it wasn't over yet. But this was a huge victory. I had finally managed to flip the script on Karen. She had underestimated me, and now she was going to face the consequences.